The St. Matthew AME Church History. A small group of public and spirit-minded men, known as the J. Garfield Tynes Men's Club, was organized on May 14, 1941, to render a more efficient type of Christian service in the community. The members were Gardner Smith, who served as chairman, Charles Congleton, E.L. Edmondson, David Beasley, William Reed, Nolan Dunn, William Weeks, Walter Davis, Clarence Lee, James Carraway, and John Boykin. On June 12, 1942, a group of women united with the men's club, and from this union came the Unity Circle. In the fall of 1942, the club took on a new aspect, and they decided to form a new church in the Oranges to the glory of God and the African Methodist Episcopal Church. With this in mind, the St. Matthew African Methodist Episcopal Church was organized in the home of Mr. Gardner Smith by the Reverend Thomas L. Puryear. The first service was held November 15, 1942, in the St. Luke's Hall, which was located at 148 Central Place in Orange. The first pastor, appointed by Bishop David Sims at the 71st Annual Conference, was the late Reverend Thomas Puryear. He served as pastor until 1954. The church continued to grow, which necessitated larger quarters, and the congregation moved to the Masonic Temple at 89 Parrow Street in Orange on December 31st, 1942. The first anniversary service was celebrated at the local YMCA on November 21st, 1943, with Bishop Sims as the guest speaker. Services continued there until 1944. On Saturday, October 15, 1944, the congregation moved into the spacious dwelling, which is the former parsonage, now known as Memorial Hall, where services were held for 7.5 years. On Sunday, May 2, 1954, the Reverend James C. Choice was appointed as pastor by Bishop Decatur W. Nichols. He served as pastor until 1963. And then in July 1963, the Bishop George Baber assigned Reverend Theodore R. Kelsey as pastor. During his pastorate, the church was fully furnished and a complete kitchen was installed, and the mortgage was burned. His pastorate ended in 1967. In that November, the late Reverend Sylvester Odom was appointed as pastor by Bishop John D. Bright. Reverend Sylvester Odom was reassigned in 1969. The late Reverend Booker T. Cartwright was assigned as pastor from 1969 to 1972 by Bishop Bright. During his tenure, the air conditioning system was installed. Then on May 14, 1972, Bishop Bright assigned the late Reverend Frank Williams to serve as pastor. Even though God called him home a mere 6 months into his pastoral charge, his leadership has left an indelible impact. After the passing of Pastor Williams, Reverend John W. Jackson, our capable assistant pastor, assumed responsibility until the next annual conference convened. Bishop Ernest Hickman then appointed Reverend Leroy Attles to pastor St. Matthew in 1973. In 1977, he was assigned to pastor in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The Reverend Charles E. Martin was appointed in 1977 by Bishop Hickman. Bishop Richard Allen Hildebrand appointed Reverend Martin to pastor in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania in 1981. Bishop Richard Allen Hildebrand appointed the Right Reverend Reginald T. Jackson to succeed Reverend Martin as pastor of St. Matthew in 1981. He served until he was elected and consecrated the 132nd Bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Church in July of 2012. During his pastorate, the congregation had grown tremendously, both numerically and spiritually, requiring the erection of a new edifice in 1985, an expansion of that sanctuary, and construction of a community life center in 2002. The Reverend Dr. Lanel D. Guyton was appointed on November 17, 2012, by Bishop Gregory G. M. Ingram. During his pastorate, in addition to administering changes to St. Matthew's branding and ministry engagement, Reverend Guyton embraced the community by fostering relationships on the local, county, and state level. Reverend Guyton's pastorate ended in June 2018. The Reverend Melvin E. Wilson was appointed on June 16, 2018 by Bishop Gregory G. M. Ingram, becoming the 11th pastor of St. Matthew AME Church. Pastor Wilson continues to lead and champion the charge of St. Matthew being a servant church, with focus in displaying God's love for God's people. In addition to a renewed focus on ministry, service, and radical hospitality, Reverend Wilson works tirelessly to be an exceptional communicator, preacher, and teacher. Reverend Wilson continues to lead and position St. Matthew as a beacon of hope and of service to the community in the midst of the COVID-19 global pandemic. He has also been bold in addressing areas such as mental health, food insecurity, and several other unmet needs in the local, national, and global communities. St. Matthew is now the second church in the New Jersey Conference and one of the leading churches in the state and has a bright future. To God be the glory.